Some good games. Although not Shadow of the Colossus. Not Shadow of the Colossus.
All right.
I was so mad when they didn't like update. Like when I saw that they were like the new, like the HD version, when they're like, it plays just like the original, just like you remember it. I was like, why? When you're remaking the game, why aren't you fixing it? I was so mad. I was like really pumped because it looks amazing. It like the HD version looks incredible.
I bought it. Yep.
Yeah. It looks unreal. Like unreal.
Yep.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey, folks.
I like froze there for a quick second at the beginning. I was like, man, I forget how I do these intros. It's definitely been a while since we've all three been together, especially for like just a standard episode. Like we did last time we were all three together was for the holiday, or not the holiday, the 3-year anniversary episode, which was, we kind of dug into some more retro stuff on that episode. And I guess I'll get us started here. No need to preamble here more than I usually do. But yeah, I did a stream actually earlier today, and actually I've been having all sorts of computer issues in the hours since then. But during the stream, I had no issues, and I was checking out a game called Belle Boomerang, and just a really fun kind of 2D run and gun, not run and gun so much, but kind of like a Mega Man, Castlevania-esque platformer. Really has like it goes for that like 8-bit like. Kind of feels like true 8-bit retro aesthetic, like NES era, but it definitely like it goes full widescreen.
Sure.
I really love the aesthetic. It's like one of those games that, but it does have like the menu bar on the bottom that has like your health and your status. So it doesn't take like the real estate of the actual game like is covered up just a little bit on the bottom, but with cool like information that looks cool. It's like a really stylish game,
like
but
Kirby's
it even
Adventure
does
almost.
It's very much a Kirby, like even the palette, the color palette's very like pastel and bright.
Oh, nice.
But I was saying like after like the first level or two, I was like, oh yeah, I was like, because I kind of fired it up thinking like, oh, this feels like a good game to just play like during the day. I think I jumped on it like a little bit after noon, and I was like, yeah, this will just be like a leisurely retro kind of game, and it'll be fun to just kind of rip through. Oh, not at all. This shit got so hard so fast. But thankfully, like there's some decisions that are like really generous in the sense that like they're like if you hit a checkpoint, once you hit that checkpoint, you can die as many times as you want, but you'll keep respawning at that checkpoint. But I think I got to like level 5 or 6 in the game. Like I played for maybe 2 hours or so. And by the time I was getting to whatever level I was on, 5 or 6, like the checkpoints were few and far between, like really, really spread out to the point where like I was like almost ready to give up on the last level that I beat before the end of the stream. But I was like, I can't like throw away that much progress. Like I have to beat this stage, even though who knows if I'll actually end up going back to beat the game because I never beat any games these days. But I really was kind of sucked in. Like there's a few different power-ups that you get that are a little bit more. Like if you kill a purple enemy, it drops like a little berry or some kind of bell or something. I think it is a bell because it is Belle Boomerang after all.
Nice.
But you like pick that up and then you get a few different power ups, at least that I've come across. Like you turn into like a pink, like rose colored version, and you can like pick up these cherries off the ground and throw them at enemies that can kill certain enemies that you couldn't kill before.
Nice.
You can get like this water, like kind of mermaid suit that it's not so much a suit, but it's like a palette swap. But then like when you're in this like mermaid suit, your like hair's like damp down and wet. Like it has like a ton of little like details and just like little nuances and stuff like that are really nice. Like one of the levels actually started, the 3rd level, I think it was, like starts out like, again, for the most part, you're playing on these widescreen, but like NES style graphics. But then this level crops it in really tight, and it's actually in the Game Boy perspective, like aspect ratio. And it even has like, I think it says like Bell Boy or Bell something on the bottom or Boomerang.
That's great.
It says something to that effect underneath, like has the aesthetic. And then when you get to the second screen, like I love how it'll be like level 1, or actually I think it's scene 1, act 1. And then when you get to like clear that screen, like go through the door like you would in a Kirby game, it works just like that. Like you go through the door, then it'll be like scene 1, act 2, and then you move on to that.
That's
so
cool.
on this particular stage, you it actually turns into like a Game Boy Color level after that, and then like the palette starts popping in, and then as you like get through the level, there's like this one section where you're going across this moving platform. The whole screen actually expands into widescreen like while you're playing it.
Wow.
It was really, really cool. There were like a lot of little touches to detail. Just really cool enemy designs, really expressive like character animations, really cool like funny dialogue. Like there was like a little like kind of hub cafe world, or it was actually like backstage area where you can like go and actually like after you clear an area, like the enemies from that area will be hanging out in the backstage area. And you can just like talk to them and they'll give you little tips and tricks or show you your stats for like how many times you've jumped in the game or how many enemies you've killed or whatever. Like it was just like a really, really well put together package. And it did actually, I know I was saying how hard it was. It did have a couple of difficulty settings that, again, I really love how it broke it down. Like it said, retro setting. Retro is like you get 2 HP and it says like less platforms and enemies are more aggressive. And then for, I think it was casual or normal or something like that, it's like you get 3 HP and I think it just said like enemies are a little less common to see or so. I forget what it was, but it like breaks it down so you really know. Like, I love because I hate when you have to make that decision. I don't think you can switch it after you start. So I think it's like, you can make a new save file, I guess, but you know, it's not one of those where you can like tweak it on the fly. So I do like when you have to pick something up front, when it gives you that information, like this is the recommended difficulty, or this is for experienced players. This is for people who are, you know, new to, you know, don't have that retro background or something. Right. But yeah, I was really impressed. Like the music was awesome. The graphics were awesome. I don't know what I was expecting, but other than I wasn't expecting to get my ass handed to me like I did. But yeah, I just thought it was a really cool game. I definitely, the whole time I was thinking, even our buddy Paradigm was hanging out in the stream, and he even mentioned, he was like, I think Randall would like this game.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh man, he must listen to the podcast here and there, because if he knows Randall's taste, I was definitely thinking that the whole time as well. But yeah, it definitely has like those retro, like there's one part where you're kind of climbing up a waterfall and the screen kind of locks, or I don't think it was a waterfall actually, but like kind of like the waterfall stage in Contra. Yeah. Where you're like, if you fall down below the screen, you start dying. So it's like, it's got those retro moments, but again, with the mostly lenient checkpoint system, other than the fact that they, you know, get spread out pretty far as you get further into the game. Like, but I think the checkpoints were closer together if you played on the normal difficulty. So. Yeah, or the casual difficulty or whatever. But yeah, really cool game. The developer was also hanging out in the stream. It was just a fun time. I've been doing a bunch of streams here and there, so I actually will be talking about another one a little bit later. And I know on last week's Save It for the Cast, or on a recent Save It for the Cast, I don't know if it was last week's or not, but I talked real quickly about Floppy Nights, and I'm not going to dig into that. But after I was streaming some Floppy Nights, which is a really cool turn-based tactics game, and we'll talk some tactics later as well. But yeah, I ended up jumping into some Windjammers 2, which is, I didn't know it was on Game Pass. I was just kind of like browsing around, and I was having some issues with my Xbox controller disconnecting. I'm having all sorts of technical issues these days. But yeah, I just plugged it in straight for this stream. I was like, I'm just going to plug it in and stop fidgeting with the controller and just play some games. Yeah. And I ended up playing a little bit of Windjammers 2. I didn't play that much, but I know you probably played about the same amount as I did. I played maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, and yeah, Randall's. We're always kind of on that Game Pass train, or at least trying to keep up. They're constantly putting sweet games on there, but you probably have a little more. Like I'm only vaguely familiar. I might have played the original Windjammers at some point, but you have played the original before, right? Because I remember you being kind of like excited for this. Oh yeah, when it got announced, or when I don't remember when we talked about it before, but you were like, oh yeah, Windjammers. Yeah. But yeah, what was your like experience with Windjammers going into it?
Well, I'm literally wearing a Windjammers shirt right now because I knew.
But that's amazing.
I just like the design of the shirt. I'm a little bit of a poser that way, in that, you know, I've played Windjammers a decent amount, but I would not say I'm some Windjammers expert by any means. You know, I just like the game and I like the shirt, so
and it's very much your style of game. Like it's got that like puzzle fighter energy, even though it's a totally different type of game. But
very
not totally
arcadey, very like quick. So and you know, and it's the original Windjammers was a Neo Geo title, and like Neo Geo was always,
what I was
like
thinking,
a white whale of a system for me in general, and that's gonna always be unattainable. But you know, now a lot of those games get re-released on Switch, especially. Which is awesome, but I think they're on a lot of platforms, which is cool because those games
those like arcade archives and stuff, those are awesome.
Yeah, those are great, and they're great ports, so, you know, I don't have to spend I don't even know how much those cost.
$400 on, and who knows the console, but then and let alone the storage space. And
So for those of us who only have a passing familiarity with Windjammers, what is it?
Yeah, so Windjammers is
thanks.
A top-down think Pong meets a fighting game, I guess, is the best way I can describe this. Okay. So
I was like half jokingly saying like either during the stream or maybe I put it in like the video description after, but I was like, it's kind of like a fighting game meets Pong meets like tennis meets volleyball.
I always thought it was
like kind of
frisbee volleyball. Basically,
it is like frisbee volleyball, kind of. Yeah, but it has that fighting game energy and arcade like structure for sure.
Man, you
very,
literally
like,
pick characters and you play as those characters, but it's top down, and you're throwing this frisbee. And ultimately, your goal is to get the frisbee past the enemy character on the other side of the court behind him. And there's normally different sections on the court behind each character that are worth different amounts of points. And you can kind of, especially as you get better at controlling the game and controlling your frisbee throws, you can get where you can kind of aim at certain places to try and score, one section right behind the character in the middle, in the center, which might be smaller than the other sections, might be worth 5 points, whereas the other two sections that surround it are worth 3 points each, right? So, more...
And it's different on every state. Like, every course has them in, like, sometimes it's in the center that it's worth 5 points. Sometimes it's both on the outskirts, like both sides, like right by the post.
Yes.
It's worth 5 points, and the middle's only worth 3. So it's kind of different depending on each stage.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, which is cool. So that kind of offers the variance while being pretty consistent in, the control is basically the same for both Windjammers and Windjammers 2. I'll say it's to me, I was able to pick up Windjammers 2 pretty easily because I had that experience with the first one. But that being said, it's not an easy game to learn.
It is hard. It is hard to learn and just hard in general.
Another similarity to fighting games that way, I would say, in that sense. You need to spend time learning this game's mechanics to feel good about it, I would say. But once you do and it clicks, it's like, oh, okay.
What I did, I don't know if you had this experience, but I played a few battles on normal. Yep. Like, I read the tutorial because there's not like actually a tutorial. You just have to like read through, and there's like a ton of screens. It's pretty basic. Like, it explains it pretty well, but it's like, this is this type, this is what this button does. Like, it breaks it down. It's like about the same amount of complexity as like a Mario Tennis game where you have like all your different type. You have like a drop shot, a slap shot, because you basically have to catch the frisbee. Because another way you can get points is if the frisbee, even if it doesn't cross the goal, if it like lands on the ground on your side, you get 2 points.
Yep.
So there's like a bunch of different ways, but you have like a special meter that you can charge up.
Yep.
And it's all about timing. Like it gets, I'm not good at it, but you can get like into a rhythm where like if you time it instead of catching the frisbee, if you like time it just right, you can like pop it up into the air. Yep. And then you can like jump and catch it and like do like almost like a spike, that's what made it like feel more like volleyball. Yeah. Every character kind of has like their own special moves and stuff, but like some of the characters, like they seem like they almost like grab it with like both hands and like slam it into the sand, and it like almost like Sonic style like rolls into a ball and like steamrolls you into the net sometimes. Like,
and especially like other retro volleyball games, you can kind of tell the frisbee's going up in the air, and it's not going to go behind your character, but it's going to land somewhere on the active playing court. But there's a cursor that shows where it's going to land, so if your character can get underneath of that early enough, you can start building up your power so that when you catch that frisbee, you're like powered up, and then you're throwing it crazy. And, so there's a lot of like little intricacies with the gameplay that way, again, like a fighting game.
Yeah, very much so. Because, you even have to do like the little like half circle Hadoukens to put a little like English. Like you can really because you can bank it off the walls.
Yes.
So like not only you can do like a straight shot and have it do like a 45 or a 90-degree angle bank or whatever, but you can also do like a hook shot, so it like keeps slamming against, like kind of almost rides the rail.
Right.
And then some characters have a move that like it literally like goes into the wall almost and like rides along the wall, which again on a stage where the 5 pointers are right on the sides, like that's a huge advantage. And every character has like there's basically just like a power, there's a 1 meter with power on one side and speed on the other, and it's just like what's the balance of that character. Like it's not like, so it's just how much green for speed and red for and it's just like how much how well is it balanced, if that makes sense. Like there's not an individual meter for each. It just shows like their balance between the two.
Exactly.
But it feels really cool, and I love the art style.
Yes.
I sometimes aren't really I'm not always into like the hand drawn animation in video games. Like I sometimes feel like there can be a little bit of a disconnect between the controls and the animation. It's just like can be a little bit delayed, or I don't know. I just there's a lot of games that I play with hand drawn animation where it just doesn't click for me. Like even like Hollow Knight or something, you know.
Sure.
But this game just felt so snappy and energetic, and the music's awesome. It's got that like Sega Neo Geo arcade energy.
It's just very much an arcade game, despite it not releasing an arcade. It has that, you know, spirituality of an arcade game because that's what the first one was. And like .mu developed this and published it, who also worked on Streets of Rage 4, which is why they share such a similar hand-drawn art style.
They do have that same style.
And it's very vibrant.
It kind of seems and I liked it in Streets of Rage 4 too. And I remember thinking like, man, I don't always like it. And even when I first saw it, I was like, I don't think I like it. But in action, I was like, ooh, I love this.
Me too. It feels great. It's basically, you know, it is new in that there's new characters and new stages, but it's more or less kind of the same game experience, just moved to like a lot of fighting games, like, you know, like Streets of Rage 4 to 5 is like, yes, there are obviously differences, but the core mechanics are going to carry through to some degree, right? And that's the same experience here from Windjammers to Windjammers 2. It's more about like new visuals, new characters, new stages, and then they kind of put online front and center. Didn't get a chance to try that out, but that's, you know, I think one of the other major factors for this release is like, this is the new one.
Yeah, I was a little bit bummed. I tried playing online, and it said that because I saw that not only does it have online, it appears to have crossplay online. But I wasn't able to sync with anybody. Like I saw it said there were only 19 players online at the time, which that always sucks with online, unless you're Rocket League or Apex Legends or one of the just like the huge games. Like it's got to be so hard to fight for that attention and have an audience. Obviously, I mean, especially because we played this on Game Pass, like I was mentioning earlier. So like if you know anybody that's got Game Pass, it's an easy way to sync up with people. But I was like, as soon as I saw it had crossplay, I was like, oh, I should be able to find somebody for sure. And I was like, man, I must be number 19. I must be that one odd, you know, it's 1-on-1 always. Like you can't play like 2-on-2 or anything like that. Right. So it must have just been, I needed to wait around for one more person to join. But I do want to maybe try to sync up on this at some point if we're ever able to be free to game at the same time, Randall. I know. That would definitely be fun to go head to head.
No, I do too.
It does have that intensity. It has that.
It does.
I don't know. Like different game, obviously big time, but like Bust a Move 4 and all those, like I love going head to head with you in games like that. So it just feels like this would be a good time.
And the intensity just kind of ramps back and forth. And like you, I started on normal, but I had to go back down to easy. But then I did play through the arcade campaign on easy, and then I'm like, oh, okay, now I've got like it's back in my muscle memory, right? It's in my fingers again. So then I was able to like, okay, let's crack it back up to normal, and then like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing success on normal now that I've done that. So that's what I would advise folks just starting out, or if you haven't played Windjammers in a while and you're going back to 2. Start on easy, just to get your bearings.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it back around to that because I don't think I finished that thought. And yeah, I did the same thing. Played a couple matches on easy, got the feeling. I went back to normal and then won a couple matches where before I was like, I don't even know what the fuck is happening. And I was like streaming it live. So I'm like trying to figure it out while I'm talking and just like, never a good move. Yep. I'm just like, what the hell? I'm just getting slammed into the net. Like I thought you're supposed to catch it and I just catch it and get blown into the net. Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey style, man. Like what is going on?
Your goalie didn't turn into a brick wall effectively.
I need that. I need that. But yeah, I liked how like some of the courses added like the like kind of bumpers in the middle.
Yeah, like just the obstructions and stuff. It's really
and that
cool.
They moved, like they were actually like it wasn't just like a stationary object like a pole. Like it would like actually get bumped from side to side along the net. Like it was really cool.
Yeah, agreed.
Really cool twist to the gameplay. Yeah, fun game. Definitely recommend it, and especially if you got Game Pass.
Same.
But why don't we toss it over? I teased a little strategy action, so why don't I tease it over? I think we even teased this on the episode that you and I had, John, a tiny bit. Maybe not, but
we definitely talked about it. Don't know if that made it to the cast or not.
Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah. But yes, I've been playing Triangle Strategy, which
I know I said you're about to say it.
I checked because I've been looking. Like we first talked about it on episode 91 of this when they released the playable demo.
Wow.
And I
forgot about that.
Yeah. And my first impressions of the game when I played the demo was, I was so high. I really liked Project Octopath Traveler, the other game by this like division of Square Enix.
Right.
That I thought was a really good take on the Bravely Default mechanics that they had started doing, and also like I really love the art style and the storytelling of Octopath Traveler. So that team working on what I would have at the time considered to be like, oh, this is kind of a spiritual successor to Final Fantasy Tactics. Like that was everything I wanted, and I was so excited for that. And then I played the demo, and I think I remember being like pretty disappointed, but like still cautiously optimistic because it was so different from Final Fantasy Tactics.
Sure.
And then when we were talking on the anniversary podcast, I was bringing up one of my favorite tactics games of all time, a Fire Emblem Awakening, and people just kept talking about it, and that spurred a little memory. I was like, hey, I think Triangle Strategy came out, and I checked it out, and I was like, yep, it absolutely is out. You know what? I want to play a new strategy game. I want to keep having them keep making these types of games. Absolutely. So I went out, picked it up, and started playing it, and it is very much not a Final Fantasy Tactics game, and that I think is something that I like. Don't know if it was, communicated enough in like people's expectations or reviews of the game. I mean, I love the Final Fantasy Tactics series. They're some of my favorite games of all time. But like, I think a lot of people were disappointed that it wasn't that type of game. But then I kept playing it, and I started texting my friend who's also in our Discord now. And
Corbett.
No, Zanjera.
Nice.
Friend. And we were texting each other like out of the blue because he had just picked it up too, and I was like, "Are my expectations for JRPGs like so low, or is this one of the best stories in any JRPG I've ever played in my life?"
Dang.
And he was in agreement. He's like, "Yeah, this is just wildly." So much better than like the standard fare of
especially with a strategy game. I mean, Fire Emblem was obviously kind of put that in the forefront a little bit more with the later releases, but still.
And
but I don't tend to think that first and foremost. Yeah.
But like that, the way that I would sell this game, like if I were to describe if you were going into this game not knowing what to expect, I would not sell this as a strategy game. I would sell this as almost like a point and click adventure game.
Oh,
interesting.
Because I am in chapter 10 of the game right now. And I think that there is probably an equal spread of, non-combat like exploration of like arenas where you are talking to NPCs and gathering information. And actually, let me back up for a second. So the setting for this story is that there are 3 countries at war, and your kingdom that you are a minor house of is taken over very early on by one of the 3 kingdoms. And so the king and prince that you were like servants of, or a minor house of, they fall, and you are this small, like relatively powerless house against a vast nation that has taken you over, and another nation that has their own political schemes and machinations. And I have not played a game, and that might just be self-selection of like, but I haven't played a lot of RPGs where you are basically powerless and at the whims of so much greater powers than you.
Yeah.
And the way that the story unfolds is that, you know, you do these little exploration bits where you learn little bits and pieces about like, oh, what the immediate like crisis is at hand. And then you have a voting section for a lot of these like turning points. So it has a bunch of different endings and a bunch of different branching paths.
Nice.
And you try to, people will vote on what they think in your court of like House Wolfhort, of like, oh, like, here's what I believe we should do. And you can try to use the information that you've gathered in those sections to convince them to whatever way you want them to.
Wow.
And there's always 7 people voting, at least in the parts that I've been so far. And, you know, it's usually like, oh, here's 3 for this, 3 for this, and 1 undecided. So, like, you focus on...
You're trying to sway that vote.
Is it like a small council of, like, the kingdom type of thing going on that way?
Yeah.
Is that the idea?
And they're all, like, playable characters.
Yeah.
They're all... And they...
Oh, nice.
I haven't... Oh, man, the combat is also so good, and the units are so good. But that's, like,
So
an
that's
afterthought at this point. Like,
yeah, yeah, I was going to say, so you would... Because if you're talking about that being... I wasn't expecting you to say that after you said, like, oh, I'd kind of almost pitch it more as a point-and-click adventure kind of thing. But is that more just because of the pacing of it or something? Because it's happy to hear that the combat's also good, you know, and engaging.
That's the thing, is that, like, I feel like if you compare it, especially to, like, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, like, yes, there's a story, but, like, the main gameplay that you are doing is a battle.
Right.
Whereas this, there are equal parts of, like, story and, like, trying to, like, gather information or investigating, and then battle. Like, they're
Okay.
equal parts. Like, if you just sold this game as a tactics game, like, you are selling 1/3 of this game. Like,
Wow.
Okay.
there is so much more that is just not battles. And I think the surprising thing for me, at least, was that it's done so well. And I think the first time that, like, that really took me off guard was when I completely failed in changing anyone's vote, and like 100% of them went against what I thought. But like, that's built into the mechanics. He's like, all right, I trust all your guys' judgment, and like, we did the thing that I definitely didn't want the story to do.
Wow.
But like,
That's kind of cool.
But it made sense from like, I did a piss poor job of convincing people, and, you know, this made their motivations made sense. Like,
and you thought that you did a piss poor job convincing them because in the more story based thing where you're supposed to gather information to build your case, you might have missed a thing or two that would have built your case. Like, this is evoking like a visual novel, like Phoenix Wright type of thing for me a little bit from that perspective, like evidence gathering section type of thing going on.
But also, there is the strength of your arguments are guided by 3 convictions that you can have, which I meant to have them up right away. I think it's utility, liberty, and morality.
Okay.
Yeah, and you are trying to convince people based on the strength of your convictions in those 3 areas.
Makes sense.
So I think that but also, it's not just like choices you make in the story that strengthen those ratings. Like, as you're like fighting in battles, like if you are like over leveled compared to your opponents, your convictions will like strengthen in one of those 3. If you eliminate every enemy on a battle before the battle is done, that will strengthen your convictions in another area.
Right.
If you buy items regularly, that will strengthen your convictions. Like, there is so much in this game. Like, I have not like played a game that is simultaneously this like intricate but also this compelling. Like, there are I have played JRPGs that have like, oh, here is like a million characters and they all have their motivations, but like in this one in particular, like every time that like every country is made up of like a ton of smaller like political actors who all have their own motivations.
Right.
So at any given time, you are allied with one or betraying another, and like they are willing to throw you to the wolves as quickly as they are to like join your side. So like you are constantly like on your feet or backpedaling and like truly in a position of powerlessness that I
was gonna say it sounds like you're like at the mercy of the game. Like you can make some decisions, but then those decisions that you make, you're then just like stuck with the outcome of those decisions. Like you can't be like, oh shoot, I should have done this. Like I like at least the way you're framing it. It sounds like it's presented in a way where you're just like, oh man, that's not what I wanted, but you're happy to accept that like that's what happened in the game, as opposed to being like, oh, I should save scum this and figure out a way to get back, and I didn't want that to happen, and maybe I can go back and try to convince them. Like you're just happy to move on and be like, okay, that's the way things go.
And I'm trying to play this game without a guide as well, so that I'm like really just experiencing it as it happens. But like it's also causing me a lot of anxiety because like I was like, oh god, I did not unlock this like dialogue option. There's just a padlock over that, and I know that is going to be the one I need.
They even show you that? That's not that's not cool. Don't do that to me, game.
That's a little brutal.
But I did,
don't rub it in my face.
The one thing I did look up is that in New Game Plus, it does show you like you get all of the units that you get. Because I think if you do go in different like story directions, you get different characters. Okay. But it also will tell you, like, instead of a little pop-up in the right-hand corner of the screen that says Serenoa's convictions have been strengthened, it'll actually tell you, like, what your each option will do in what of those three, like, areas. And, like, I think it'll give even the, like, number amount of, like, how it will do. So then you can actually see, like, the inner workings of the decisions you make. So, like, I really want to like get to the point where I get to play this game like second time through, but like, oh boy, it's a lot already.
Yeah, how much time have you put in so far?
Honestly, like for me, I would say a short amount, so like
reasonable amount of time,
like 30 hours probably. But
okay, yeah, because I feel like usually when you're like, oh, I started Dark Souls, I'm about 75 hours in or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just in the opening area.
Just booted it up. Just booted it up. Gave it a little try.
But also all the characters are unique and like all have like there's not a job system, so that's one of the things I was upset about. There's not really even equipment. There's accessories which give you like slight boosts, but there are
does
skill
that streamline
trees.
Things a little?
It does. Like that's the nice thing. Like there's
like a sacrifice, but maybe worth it, kind of.
Right. Like they put and the stuff that you can customize, like the skill tree is like, oh, I'm using like the items that I've gathered in battles or like side missions to level up like the one weapon that this character has, and then or it like unlocks an ability that they have. So like that's nice, and like it's that every character has their own unique abilities, and like one of the like first characters you get is an assassin who she moves twice or she attacks or acts twice each turn, and I'm like, well, she's the main character of this game.
Heck
like
I
don't care about the main character. Like I care about this perfect assassin who I just have given her everything, and it's been great.
Man,
it almost kind of reminds me of the structure, like definitely different, but the way you're describing it, that less in depth on the in between the battles and stuff, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom battle structure a little bit. Like, oh, you go in, play a battle, then you kind of have a hub. I think I'm just kind of thinking that because of like the isometric camera, and like I don't know why I'm thinking of that. I guess it's one of the few games
there's a lot more movement, freedom of movement in those games as well. But I do like the continuity between, oh, here's the area that I'm exploring versus here's the battle that I'm doing in the same place.
Right.
I guess it's like sort of like that, right? Like it's like you're on a path and then it like you're battling, but in that zone, it doesn't go to like a battle area. It's like it's in the actual world, right?
And it's not even an open world. It's like Octopath was an open world, but like this one is you have an overworld map that like, you know, has little icons that you like will select for the next battle or for the next investigation side or the next like side like story. Like there is stuff that like you don't even need to watch, but like he's like, hey, let's see what the other kingdom is doing, and it's like, oh shit, that's gonna be the next chapter because the things are going bad for me. Oh,
Man.
so good. I'm really pleasantly surprised by it.
That sounds fantastic.
That's great to hear, yeah. Especially when it was like, it wasn't like you picked it up on day one. It was like, oh yeah, I forgot that game was coming out. That's kind of like a nice little like bonus almost.
Yeah, really good.
Nice. Yeah, good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, and I guess I mentioned I was going to talk a little tactics myself, and just briefly, because I'll put a link to this in the episode description here, because we did a stream the other day, or I did a stream with the developer of this game called Tinyfolks. The developer is Pierre Vander Mason. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's from France, or lives in France at least. And yeah, I ended up sending him a message on Discord. He sent the game our way, and he was actually updating us, like in the Discord. We have like a share your stuff channel, and he was like updating, like showing us the monsters in the game, and like a bunch of the pixel art along the way. And we were all like, oh yeah, there's just a ton of cool stuff, and it's got a really expressive like 1-bit pixel art style. There's a little more to it than just strictly 1-bit, but it's kind of got that, super simplified aesthetic. But anyways, like I had sent him a message like, hey, I'm gonna probably do a stream of the game if you want to maybe sync up for it. And he was under the impression like, oh, we'll do like a phone call. And I was like, oh, I thought we were just going to do like text chat. So I was like, but if you want to be a guinea pig and try it out, I've never done it before, but we can give it a try. And not only is the game Tinyfolks amazing, but Pierre is like one of the nicest people around, and really took kind of the load off of me on the stream. We ended up playing for like 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And like, it was more of like, I didn't really like, normally when I'm playing a game, I'm just kind of like either cursing because I'm dying a bunch, like in Belle Boomerang, or I'm just kind of like, just BSing about whatever. Like I'm talking about the game mechanics or whatever. But in this case, we were just kind of like back and forth having a conversation, or he'd be like describing stuff, or every now and then I'd maybe pause and say like, hey, what should I do here? Should I continue this battle, or should I go back to the town and go to sleep and replenish my health or whatever? And he's like, yeah, maybe you're not quite ready for the boss yet. Go back to town. But for the most part, we were just kind of like, he was like interacting with whoever was talking in the chat. I guess he's actually been like developing the game on streams and stuff. But it was crazy to think, like, to me, like the first thing I thought immediately, you boot the game up, and it's got like the title screen and like there's a few different like pixel art characters like bobbing their head to the music. Like he said he didn't do it on purpose. It just ended up working out. He's like, I guess I just like to work in the same kind of rhythm with the pixel art and the music or whatever. But he told me the music was like an afterthought for the game. Just kind of like, oh, I whipped it up, like just kind of like I had all these different zones, like I had to make a bunch of different music, and the music is amazing. Like it is like a soundtrack worth purchasing, in my opinion. Like it was blowing my mind how good it was, and especially knowing that he was just like, oh yeah, I just also did not only did I do every single element of this game, but I also did the music, which I guess that's included in there, obviously. But yeah, I just had a really good time. It had a little more depth than I expected. So it's like a turn-based tactics game that has like kind of that double layer where you have like your turn-based battles where you're going, there's like an overworld map, kind of like you're talking about with Triangle Strategy. Like there's an overworld map with a bunch of different biomes on it that like start out on the easier side and they get harder and harder. You can replay them, and basically on easy, you have unlimited time. On normal, you have 45 days, and on hard, I think you have 30 days or something like that. So each day, like if your character, one of your characters goes down to like half health, and it's all permadeath, and like if anybody dies, you have to like you have to go back to like the town area and like recruit new people from the town, and then upgrade them in the town, and upgrade new buildings in the town, and upgrade like you can upgrade like there's like probably 7 or 6 different like buildings you can build, maybe even 8, and then you can upgrade those to like multiple tiers where that you can then like craft different buffs out of the stuff you grab. Obviously bosses, if you're able to kill a boss, give you like the most resources and money. But yeah, it's just like, it's got so many layers to it where like it's one of those games where like I even was saying this on the stream too. It's like, especially getting a little bit of insight from Pierre, but like, it's one of those games where like I started playing it kind of like we were talking about with the Windjammers too. Like you kind of, like now that I have a feel for it, it's like I almost don't want to finish out. I probably played about like 20 or 30 days through on the stream, probably about halfway through the 45 days. I just played on normal. Yeah. But now I'm like, I feel like it would be better for me to just start from scratch now that I kind of know, because you have to kind of learn the ropes as you go. Like you don't really know what this building that you build is going to do until you build it. But now that I know what it does, I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want to build that first. Maybe I want to build like the like melee training first, or the militia training or whatever, so I can upgrade my weapons and upgrade my relics, or I guess you can't upgrade your relics, but you can buy different like perma buffs that upgrade your stats. But it really comes down to like there's a lot of just little detailed touches. Like it's another game that you can play entirely with your mouse, just kicking back on the recliner like I was during the stream, just on the armrest.
Oh yeah.
And it just, it feels great. Like everything feels like the buttons are really juicy. Like when you click on them, even like the cursor itself, like when you click on it, it has like this like outline, like it doesn't make a sound or anything, but just everything feels really satisfying to play, and the balance. Like, I started saying I didn't even finish it, but like you have to like, you can have, when you start, you can have only, I think, up to 2 people in your party at a time. But as you like upgrade the size of your town and you're in, you can have up to 5 people in a battle at a time. And I think maybe up to 10 members of the town overall. Nice. But again, like you're upgrading, like if one of your characters dies that you spent some time upgrading, and it takes them like a whole day to upgrade. So you have to like really, there's just so much to juggle. Like you can put up to 2 characters like into, once you upgrade the inn enough, you can put 2 characters into like this extra rest mode. I forget what it's called, but they're able to like, if instead of taking 4 or 5 days to recover, they can just recover overnight.
Nice.
No matter how hurt they are. And yeah, I don't know. I was so impressed with like the whole package, just every little detail of like the little intro scene, almost like kind of like, you know how like Kirby games will have like that little intro when you go to like a new world or a new level.
Oh, yeah.
Like that little kind of like almost like a Pac-Man intro sequence.
Yeah.
Like there's like a little like kind of like diorama with like a little extra. So
I love that level of
like,
polish when that happens in games.
Yeah, and it really makes the more like simplified like 1-bit pixel art sprites like have more character to it, because you get to see this more detailed version of the area before you dive in. But it's just so snappy, it's such an impressive game, and it's only Pierre sent this one our way, but it's only $5, which is absolutely mind blowing. It's actually doing really well for him. I think he just posted today on Twitter and said he just broke like 10,000 sales for the game already, which is crazy.
That's
like it
awesome.
just came out a couple weeks ago. But he was like, I feel like it's just the price. It's kind of a low entry, like he was saying on the stream, just like it's a low entry point. So people feel like it's kind of low risk. Right. And then they realize, there's actually some like depth to this, and
word
it's
of mouth.
playable. And yeah. And you can find that right balance for you. Like easy is like no time limit. So it's just about beating the game.
Ooh,
But yeah, I really like that. Yeah. It's just, you can find the right balance for you. I think he's even done a few patches since the game came out already. And is planning on doing. He's like, I don't know if I'm gonna like do a DLC or anything crazy, but he's like, I definitely plan on like keeping it polished and making sure there's nothing going wrong, and might add a few things here and there. But yeah, just all the little details of like the status effects and the attack animations, like it just like in those moments, like there's just a little extra detail to the pixels and the sound effects and it's just like it's like 2-bit instead of 1-bit during those moments. It feels, it just like ups the res of the animation or something. And it just feels really, it's a special game. I really thought it was a really cool game. It was a ton of fun. Like I mentioned that Pierre developed the game a bunch on his streams and whatever. And like a bunch of the people that I guess were watching him develop the game along the way were hanging out in the chat and asking him a bunch of questions. And
that's cool.
Again, he just took the load off and basically just talked for most of the time and entertained everybody. It entertained me as well. I was like, man, this is great. I'm truly just kicking back on the recliner and enjoying this game while getting a little bit of insight on the design. So I'm really hoping to do some more streams like that. I think we have a couple more lined up. I don't want to say it 100% for sure, but especially with these computer and tech issues I've been having lately, you never know. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing more stuff like this, because it went pretty much without a hitch, and yeah, couldn't have been a kinder person to try it out with. It was awesome. I'm like just gushing right now. Like I can't believe how well it went. It was awesome.
So
kind of
cool.
the same way I felt about the game jam. It's just like, man, everything's going pretty well these days. So
nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think we can probably wrap it up there though. But yeah, we'll be back as always next week for some more video game chat. But in the meantime, you can find us on the internet, pursuingpixels.com. We're pretty much on every platform that you can imagine. Just look up Pursuing Pixels and you'll probably find us there. But yeah, until next week, we will catch you then, and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Like, I know we've talked about this, but like it is insane how like Skype calls work and audio syncing up, because the space between the clap you did on the first one versus now, and we haven't stopped this call.
Is it different because Randall like turned his camera off and turned it back on? Like, But then how does it sync up?
Right, exactly.
When
How
I
does it
sync
sync
up
up?
the audio
That
at the end? It makes
not
no
how
sense.
Sound works. That's not
Especially
how
when
time works.
Especially when it exactly.
Like,
Especially
that,
when it freezes for a second.
Didn't lose a second. Like, I don't know why the claps were closer this time.
And sometimes when it freezes, like it doesn't freeze in the way where it like freezes and I miss half of what you said. It's like it freezes and then it starts
Speeds up.
And like no, it doesn't even do that. It just like stutters. It like freezes for a second and then you just keep talking, but I don't miss anything you said. Maybe it does speed up a tad.
That's because it's using the UDP protocol.
What?
For video and streaming. It's the same protocol you use for Netflix and other video services.
Interesting. I don't know any of this. I don't know what any of this stuff means.
Any of that. Hold on, I need to pull up some Elden Ring lore to reference.